And I think that I don't know, I've been thinking a bit about Matthew Tierney myself over the last couple of weeks and kind of what's different. And I think that he's injected a bit of devil into his game that maybe wasn't quite there in even in 22 when, he ended up having actually a really good year. But I think it's just a natural progression as a guy gets a little older. I mean, he's been a vice captain on this team. He's a future Galway captain, I would say. Um, like management speak incredibly warmly and positively about him as a person around the squad, but also as a footballer. And I think that maybe they've been ahead of public opinion in Galway when it comes to Matthew Tierney at various stages over the course of the last kind of 3 years or 4 years. Um, but what we've seen in the last couple of games is a guy who actually is embracing the fact that he's going to be a leader on this Galway team, I think, for the next 6 or 7 years. Um, a guy who is kind of reveling in the idea that he's our, the kind of Farmore Lodger, Darrow O'Shea, Kevin Walsh.
The Maroon White Pod brought to you by Citylink. For bookings, timetables, updates, and any other information, head to citylink.ie. You're welcome along to the Maroon White Pod. This week, the focus is Galway and Westmeath in round two of the All Ireland series. I'm delighted to be joined by Eamon Donoghue and Ciaran Murphy this week to look ahead to this week's clash between Galway and Westmeath. Eamon, coming to you first. In one way, it's a small bit, it's a bit of a weird feeling as Galway fans going into this one this weekend. It's you don't know really whether to get excited by this weekend or not, and it's probably similar to most games in the All Ireland series, unless there are two big teams going against each other.
Yeah, well, like excited in terms of the contest. Yeah, like it's a weird time of season. It's kind of a bit of a lull. Like you win a it's for teams who are winning provincial championships. Like it's an added burden for them. They'd normally be going into knockout games, and now they've got these added games. But I think for Galway, it's a blessing. Like they're actually just getting lads back to full fitness. They're kind of finding their rhythm and their style of play that's suiting them. They're kind of, like they didn't have the luxury of that in the league because of their injuries, and they've shown like remarkable kind of depth and also like that adaptability in them games to beat Derry, to beat Mayo, playing in different ways. And they're trying to still find a bit of an identity, and like this is actually perfect for them. In terms of Galway fan coming into it, I think the biggest thing would be this. It's probably the first game in a while that you'd have that you're not actually, an underdog. Like it's kind of there's definitely a different one like that. There's a different type of pressure. So, and then how Galway take it, like as I said, like having that identity and style of play is something which is very important when you are favourites, like and you're playing against a champion team. How are they going to approach that? So, yeah, it'd just be very interesting, very different game. But at this time of year, definitely a lull. But for Galway, I think it's perfect for them.
Murph, similar to all Galway fans, just hoping that Damien Comer is fit this weekend.
Yeah. Uh, well, I don't know. I mean, we've probably all heard different types of rumors and whispers and all the rest. To be honest, if Damien Comer doesn't play on Saturday, or on Sunday rather, I don't think people would necessarily be that upset. There certainly would be an element of if I saw Damien Comer lining out in this game, I would just be praying that he's 100% fit, not 95% fit, because I think just seeing what his body went through against Derry, obviously there was the stamp, which, in ways I was nearly hoping that that was what forced him off because it would have been somewhere for my rage to go. I could have put it all on Garrett McKinless rather than just on I don't know, the football gods that Damien appears to have angered at some stage over the course of the last 5 or 6 years. But it appears to be a hamstring injury. Um, and honestly, if he's 95% fit, if he's 98% fit, I would still be inclined to not start Damien Comer on Sunday because we've just seen over the course of the last number of weeks things that we know for a fact already, which is that Galway with Damien Comer has a ceiling in Galway, without Damien Comer has a ceiling, and they're, we're talking different floors of the building. Like that's the reality. He's that important to us. Um, and for the stuff that he brings, the football ability that he brings, but I think there is just a general up and at him attitude that Damien brings to this Galway team that we actually can't replicate. There is no like for like replacement. So, um, it would be great if Damien is fit this weekend. Honestly, it would be even better if we win this game and we don't need even remotely unfit Damien Comer. And that's the big thing for me, really, that if he plays, that he be 100% fit. Um, and that to me, it seems a little unlikely, but that he would be 100% fit. And we've already seen, like Eamon has referenced there, the change of mindset that Galway will be heavily favoured to win this game. That didn't go well for us in Sligo. Damien showed that day just how good he can be, even with 25 minutes or 30 minutes. So uh, maybe that's something to keep in mind as well. That if required, then Damien is there and he can make a big difference in games like this as well. Um, but yeah, it was a major kind of black mark after the Derry game, in after what was a genuinely really really good performance by Galway that day. And so that's the only reason why I think Galway fans would be apprehensive or would be a little uptight about this weekend. Because really, like the last couple of weeks have been great. And funny, we were talking on the second captain's podcast today with Michael Murphy and Paul Flynn, and we were kind of asking the question, oh, there's been a bit of a lull, that apathy that Eamon is referencing here. And myself and Michael Murphy were kind of saying, well, I think there's a lot of apathy everywhere except Galway and Dublin, because we saw just how excited the Donegal crew were in Ballybofey last Saturday. And I think, even if it's not quite in the Galway football fans' repertoire to get that excited, we should be upbeat. We should be looking forward to what the next couple of weeks can bring.
Yeah, and we definitely need a good summer after the weekend that has just gone by. I
Yeah.
think.
I think we can all agree on that one.
Yeah. Just someone that Ciaran referenced there, and Michael Murphy, he praised the Galway half back line a lot against Derry, and he was amazed by how they controlled the ball, how they were so comfortable on the ball. Have you been impressed with that line in particular this year?
Well, again, it's that kind of thing about the identity of Galway, like, and obviously horses for horses, and how you like it's a sign of a really good team, and you see that you'd expect that with Galway and natural footballers, and the way that like they were up against Derry, and they played a very possession based style of play. A lot of teams, it would take years. Like it's literally taken Kevin McStay years to develop that with Mayo, where you can just tell the Galway players to hold on to the ball, and they'll hold on to the ball because they're all really good footballers. And then obviously a lot of the play went through the half back line because it was back and forth, but still most of their scores were from turnovers and transitions. So I think their halfbacks were very controlled in possession, but I don't think much actually came off a lot of those scores. So I still definitely think if that's the way they want to go, that games like this now would be a perfect example, because Westmeath will get men behind the ball, and Galway will have to practice breaking them down, and you don't just turn that on in one game. With Mayo game was a bit more it was just a bit more raw, I suppose. But like on that point, of hacked on Damien Comer, I thought like it was mad to not take off Damien Comer. Like if he injured his hamstring, like it's little wonder he was playing half the game there limping, like, and he doesn't hold back, like the first ball he got, he went straight at like three Derry men and he was limping, like, so like something has to give there, something's compensating, and it does kind of, you are looking at Galway at different stages, and like obviously there's a lot of injuries, but like you're looking at one point Damien Comer hobbling around, you're looking at Sean Kelly and you're still kind of asking, is he hobbling a little bit? You've obviously Matthew Tierney's had his injury. Like how many times have we seen Matthew Tierney or Killy McDade all strapped up over the years? And it's just like the game, the management there, they've been very unlucky, but there needs to be a bit more. They have been very unlucky, and like obviously there's experts in there, but they need to get their decision making a lot better coming into games like this to make sure them lads are fit on the field at the right time, like, because they're running the risk with a lot of them, not only of them missing like important games like that, but sure they're cutting into their careers, like, so which is long term bad for Galway. But yeah, sorry, just back to that back line. I think that really composed in possession, had a lot of ball that went through them. John Daly is brilliant at six, like he's so good on the ball. Paul Conroy drops in there, great kick passing option, but I still think majority of scores count from the transition. So I think they're still a bit off of kind of that being their go-to kind of possession-based team. So it'll be interesting to see what they do this weekend. I think it'll give an indication where they're in the ascendancy, and it's up to them to set the game plan or the terms to see how they do set up, because they've had to match the opposition the last two games.
We referenced there Sligo, obviously, and maybe Galway did underestimate them slightly, or Sligo came with a performance, and Galway obviously didn't perform to their best that day. Last year against Westmeath, until Ray Connellan was sent off, Galway were really in a battle that day. And Ciaran, it's the question this weekend, I suppose, for this team. We've been able to step up when we've been the underdog, but it's a different kind of mindset now this weekend, going in as favourites.
Yeah, I suppose the first thing I should say about Westmeath last year was, we still did better against them than Tyrone or Armagh did. That, like, when you look at the Armagh Westmeath game last year, I think it was a goal in the was it a Connor Turbot goal very late on, and it was like a speculative. It wasn't a particularly well worked goal. It was a speculative shot that I think dropped short, and Turbot was on hand, and it was like that was a late goal that put them ahead in that game. So I think you have to put a bit of respect on Westmeath's name, because they played really well last year, and not just against us. So we're well warned in that respect, to expect nothing but a really really tough day on Sunday. And there was even, I think, a feeling out there when Derry came to Pearse Stadium that there would be an inevitable drop off in performance after Mayo. Like, even before that game, I saw it differently. I thought that there would be a confidence injection after the Mayo game that would carry into the Derry game, and I think that's pretty much how it happened. I mean, it is a little difficult to take this sending off out of the equation altogether when evaluating Galway's performance, but I think that Galway had played well up until the sending off as well, and that confidence injection had been carried on. So if a drop off maybe is natural over the course of what we hope will be a long summer for the footballers, and this weekend, there might be an air of that kind of self-same inevitability in inverted commas that people thought ahead of the Derry game. But honestly, at this stage, there so many of the Galway footballers have played so much football already this year. We keep talking about the lads who have been injured, but the mere fact of all those injuries is that the team didn't really rotate a whole lot in the league. You were depending on the same kind of 15 or 16. Now we've added 5 or 6 more. So, if for the 22 or 21 or 22 players that are likeliest to actually play on Sunday, it's either our very best players or players who have played a ton during the league. So I don't think that we should be talking about dips or, inevitable drop-offs in form, because honestly, everyone should be in a good flow state now, should be in a good rhythm, and should be feeling really, really good about themselves. I mean, better about themselves than basically any panel outside of Donegal this year. So, I mean, we can kind of dance around the fact that, oh, well, it's just a kind of title that we've won. That's fair enough. But we should also probably embrace the fact that things have been going well for us. And, you look at the hurling team, you look at how hard it is to turn around a run of results, or just that kind of vague feeling of stagnation in a squad. And that's incredibly difficult to turn around. So that's not what we have with the Galway footballers. It's actually the complete opposite. There is like a window of opportunity has opened after some really tough times. We've turned a corner, So take that into Westmeath rather than kind of be doom laden about it and think, okay, here's it, there's like a nightmare scenario here where we get caught. I think we've kind of been, we've been worried about the goal of footballers for long enough. We should actually embrace the fact that yes, we are favourites, but also we're one of the three or four form teams in the country now. So let's continue that momentum. Let's not have that momentum stall in Mullingar on Sunday.
Do you agree with all that, Eamon?
Yeah, no, 100%. Like Galway was just ridiculously unlucky with injuries over the last 18 months. Like they're such a talented bunch of players. Like the fans should be excited and have high expectations, because when you do, match them up against any of the teams, like they are, for me, after Dublin, they're the next team. Like that's how I see it. Kerry have dropped off a little bit in that regard if they get everyone fit, and that's the concern with them. And then obviously closing that gap or in big games, obviously, when I say after Dublin, they're in that layer of teams after Dublin. But to win those games and to get to an Ireland final like they did 2 years ago, like they need to, yeah, I just think they need to develop an identity of how they play, and I think that you're 100% right to be excited, 100% right to be optimistic because of the talent that's there, because of the two results. But at the same time, kind of just the realism of it, I don't think is to be downbeat. I just think it's to be like the Mayo game. You're playing against Mayo, who kind of they set themselves up to fall, really, and Galway hung in there, showed great mentality, kind of grew into the game, beat them against Derry. Similar, they showed their adaptability. They showed what they can do on the ball, the patience, control the game, were efficient, all of those things. But I just don't think, like, if you were to say, how are Galway going to play? Like, how do they play to win All Ireland? What's their style of play? What's the key positions that certain people are going to be in? Like, they for a team who are this far along in their development under this management, I don't know if they have a clear identity of play, just by looking at them in the last couple of games. So that would be my concern. But as I said, that's why I think Galway fans should be most optimistic, is that this round robin is perfect for them. There's 2 more games now to develop that. If they can beat Westmeath, just need to beat them more, and they'll learn along the way, and I expect they will. And then there's that game against Armagh. They do really well against Ulster teams. They don't have to win that then. And again, it's more experimentation. And then they go into the big games, having had those, essentially a little mini league, which they needed. So, but like, there's a couple of positional changes they've made this year. Like Sean Kelly wing forward. Yeah, like, are they going to persist with that? What exactly are they trying to do there? Like, we haven't really seen exactly. We haven't seen enough of them yet, because we haven't seen the league. Like, so, and lads are coming back to full fitness. Like, you can kind of disregard the London and Sligo game as far as I'm kind of concerned. So you're just looking at the last 2 games, and they were very much like just a case of, as far as I see, just really, really good footballers, a really good bunch of players who kind of just got it done.
You mentioned playing style there. Do you think they're caught between two stools? Is it between attack and defense that there's?
I don't even think so. Like, I just don't think they've. I think they've played 2 games where they've got lads back on the field, like, and they didn't have, like, they just had to win the game. So they just set up to win the game, and then they went out in the next game and set up to win the game. And like, that's fine, and that'll get you so far. But like, they haven't developed their own style, or we haven't seen it, at least, of how they want to play. Like, because I didn't see massive similarities between the Mayo and the Derry game. So
yeah. Well, on this week of the Champions League final, Eamon, may I point you in the direction of Carlo Ancelotti, who has no interest in ever having an actual style of play of his own, and just comes up with a style of play that wins games. Do you think that in itself is a style when it comes to Galway? That Galway are sufficiently versatile with the quality of footballer that they have. And now I'm asking the question, not entirely sure of the answer myself, but that they decide on a style of play based on the opposition, and that there will be a specific style that they will play against Armagh, and then as you go through the rounds, that there is versatility there tactically for Galway, and that the players have shown that versatility, that they're not going to be particularly phased by being asked to play in a different way from one week to the next.
Yeah, yeah, no, and like you even seen elements of that with Jim McGuinness over the years, and that he showed elements of that with Donegal, in that he obviously had his precise way of playing, but he definitely adapted in big games. But I think that the big caveat here, and even if you compare it to Champions League or whatever, like to win All Ireland now, you have to beat Dublin. They're not at their best, but you like to beat Dublin, it takes more than it would take to win All Irelands in previous periods. So I just think that like when you're looking at a team now, it's like, oh, are they good enough to win All Ireland? It's not really. It's like, are they good enough to beat Dublin? And Dublin are so defined in what they do. So, and then obviously then you've the shortened period between the games to kind of set up and prepare for it. Like I think we'll see is the answer to that. Like I don't think many teams have taken that full approach to it. Of the bigger teams, they've kind of set up in their own way, and then maybe they've tried to change for a one-off game rather than being a team who are just really adaptable. But we definitely, and I said that earlier, we definitely seen in Derry game that the Galway players of all counties, probably along with Kerry and Tyrone, like that they are adaptable because they're really good footballers. So they can adapt to playing possession one day. You could tell them to kick it in the next day. Like, you could tell Matthew Tierney to drift in, 3 or 4 times and a half and let diagonal ball in, and it wouldn't, and Paul Conroy to let it in, and they can make those decisions very, very quickly, where a lot of other really good county teams and a lot of really good players wouldn't have that adaptability, in their repertoire. Like, so, but just, yeah, I seen that as a negative looking at them. I didn't see it a necessarily identity as a concern, but like maybe that will be their identity as it goes on. It is an interesting take.
Ciaran, one player Eamon mentions there, Matthew Tierney. Has he been the big positive? Because even against Mayo, when he came in for that short period, he won some dirty ball the last day in the build-up in the first half to, remarkably, as we're saying, to Comer's injury. He caught a great kick out. Like, he's been a huge positive since he's returned from injury.
He has, and I think that I don't know. I've been thinking a bit about Matthew Tierney myself over the last couple of weeks and kind of what's different. And I think that he's injected a bit of devil into his game that maybe wasn't quite there even in 22, when he ended up having actually a really good year. But I think it's just a natural progression as a guy gets a little older. I mean, he's been a vice captain on this team. He's a future Galway captain, I would say. Um, like, management speak incredibly warmly and positively about him as a person around the squad, but also as a footballer. And I think that maybe they've been ahead of public opinion in Galway when it comes to Matthew Tierney at various stages over the course of the last kind of 3 years or 4 years. Um, but what we've seen in the last couple of games is a guy who actually is embracing the fact that he's going to be a leader on this Galway team, I think, for the next 6 or 7 years. Um, a guy who is kind of reveling in the idea that he's our, the kind of Farmore Lodger, Darragh O'Shea, Kevin Walsh player that I wasn't sure he was going to be. There was an element of kind of a languidness about the way that he plays, or that he played in the early part of his Galway senior career, that led me to think that he's actually a different type of player to the player that he's shown over the last couple of weeks. Like, he's really eager to make a difference in the game. And it's kind of exemplified even by not taking the mark a few times when he catches big kickouts. He's landing on the half turn in that way that you love to see midfielders do. That he goes up and catches the ball, and he lands nearly pointing in the at the opponent's goal, and he just takes off. And even in the past, I would have questioned how quick a guy he is, and that's connected, I think, to the fact that I may have thought that he was a more languid player than he was. That, big guys that maybe don't throw themselves about in a very showy way, they do kind of get accused of maybe being a bit lazy or a bit standoffish. And I might have thought that about Matthew Tierney in the past as well. But when he catches the ball and runs with conviction, like there's actually no catching him. He's an extremely athletic guy. Um, and I think even in the whatever it is, probably 90 minutes or 100 minutes that we've seen of him in the championship this year, we've actually seen a player kind of growing into his role in the team kind of before our eyes. And that's just a huge plus for us because we've obviously depended on Paul Conroy in the middle of the field for so many years, and he's still doing it man of the match against Derry. And there's always going to be caveats about Paul Conroy in Croke Park. Like that's only natural given the age profile of him. But uh, Tierney is really standing up now and saying that he's going to be help for Conroy in the now, and he's also going to be that guy for us into the future as well, which is just a really positive development.
When are you going to start taking credit for? You did say Paul Conroy was one of the most underappreciated Galway footballers. I seen a
I
lot of
know.
tweets after the
Yeah.
game calling him that.
It wouldn't be like me to start taking a victory lap at this stage, Paul. But maybe the day of the All Stars, if Conroy ends up at an All Star this year. But there were obviously tactical things that happened in the Derry game that freed him up a little, and that's only natural. But and the points that he kicked are points that he'll kick. He's just such a brilliant kicker of the ball. Um, but I mean, I'm trying to remember what league game I was at. I think it was the Dublin game. That was with the Limerick hurlers, wasn't it?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
and I was kind of talking to the people I was at the game with, and there's a part of me that wants to call him, Tin Cup, because there is an element of Paul Conroy, like when he gets on the ball, if it goes wrong, another ball. He's going to keep trying. He's going to keep trying to do the positive, progressive thing in the game, in a way that, is it's not exactly a la mode anymore. But he even the way he runs with the ball, his head is up. He's soloing and not looking at the ball because he's that eager. If someone makes a run for him to kick the defining pass, so he's a treasure. Like he's just an absolute treasure. And it was great to see him play as well as he did against Derry when he was given just that bit more freedom when Rodgers went back to centre back.
Just when we're talking about Matthew Tierney there, Eamon, has he been, well, since the Derry game, I suppose, and the end of the Mayo game, but since that period, has he been Galway's best player?
Well, against Derry, he was absolutely brilliant. Like basically, he's so much ability. Like even from under 20 grade, like he was so impressive, and that was carrying knocks. And like I think that like he was the standout player in the country at his age, and he's really brought that through, which you don't see all the time. I think that like he can be effective in the middle of the field. I think that he offers that in half forward, and where he can literally be a one man half forward line, which is something we've seen kind of maybe more so maybe five years ago, teams doing with two wing forwards dropping and kind of one player holding that whole half forward line. Galway kind of seems to be doing that now with the two half forwards really dropping, and he can hold that whole half forward line on his own as an out ball, because he's a ball winner, he's really athletic, and because he's really smart. And the same with Conroy, like Galway have really smart players. Like so, like he has been excellent. He's been kind of a real, like he seems to be moving really freely as well, and he definitely has that bit more directness and a bit more bite about him, backing himself kind of in those games. So you'd hope that he can kind of build on that momentum. Like I agree 100% on the Conroy thing. Like I think it's interesting the way that there's different players, but if you look at the way that like Conroy, he's so often Galway's best player. He's so good in the middle of the field. Like he's a leader. He's a ball winner. He's really good. Always go forward ball. But if you look at someone like from Mayo, where they had O'Shea in the middle of the field, who was their primary ball winner, who was a big presence in the middle of the field, especially when his brother and Parsons and other lads went. But because they're both two players who Galway have who Dublin and Croke Park have completely like targeted and like isolated and targeted, and like Dublin really know how to run lanes, and they really like ran the legs of both of them in big games. But like Galway or Mayo have responded by basically just taking O'Shea out of midfield completely and playing him in different roles, which I don't really think have worked as well. Where Galway have continued to play Conroy in midfield, which I think is a nod to him, and they're seeing the rewards for it, because like more often, like you can't take somebody out because of one game, like one team in one scenario who are able to really expose him. Like, you know, in every other game he's so good. Like, I think there was one game or one game against Roscommon where Enda Smith kind of was a man of the match and had a really excellent game. But like in Connacht consistently, like whether it's Mayo or Roscommon, and in most of the All Ireland games, like he just dominates, you know. So like,
and against Ulster teams, Eamon, he's so useful because he uses the ball so well. He doesn't give it away that often, but when the killer passes on, he's able to thread that needle. So you're absolutely right. I mean, this idea that, I mean, obviously you have to try and Dublin has to be in the back of your mind, but it might never happen. Like
no.
Galway don't play Dublin that often in the championship, and they didn't play them in the championship in 2022. We could have won All Ireland without playing Dublin. And if the final four this year is Galway, Dublin, Kerry, and Donegal, say, there's a 2-1 chance we don't draw Dublin, and Donegal and Kerry will ask questions of Dublin. I mean, I agree with you entirely that Dublin are the form team. They're the team that, that they're by themselves at the top. But by the same token, any of those three teams will fancy their chances of taking a crack at Dublin, and someone else might take them out for us. That would be an ideal scenario, I think, for Galway.
Yeah, and I think in the middle of the field as well, like there's more contest this year than in maybe the few years before that, but like that kind of aerial duel has gone out of it, and that kind of, like, and Dara O'Shea or Kevin Walsh mentality isn't as necessary anymore. But there is still a lot to be said of just general presence and leadership in the middle of the field, and Conroy like really brings, like, he's like the coach mentality there around them, and it's so lacking in a lot of other counties. Like I actually see with Mayo, for instance, there's so many fantastic midfielders, but like they don't have somebody who can provide that. And if they had somebody, they've loads of players who'd be brilliant beside somebody who provides that, where Conroy does provide that. Like he knows when to control the game, when to slow it up, when to get on the free, when to mix it a bit. Like he's able to do that without the contests. It's just by sheer presence. And so like he is a brilliant player, and trying to mesh in that area. Like I think definitely worth mentioning as well, John Maher, who I think has been like, and Darcy as well. Like the two of them have improved so much over the years. Like I remember when they were first getting brought into Galway squads, like wasn't very impressed with either of them, to be totally honest. And the rate of improvement from both of them is just so high. Like Maher contested not a load of ball, but like every ball he contested with Conor Glass the last day, like he was well able to contest. We've seen him in big games, fielding ball. Like he works so hard. He gets through so much. He gets through so much tackling, and on the ball he's solid, and he get forward and get a score. Like I think he's a real addition, and Darcy coming in now as well after having a great year in Ballyboden, which he really was impressive in the Dublin Championship last year, and he came on and played well, did really well for that goal. Like I think that them two are they're definitely add to it as well, and in that middle sector it's just trying to get that blend right. And it's the transition. I know Sean Kelly was saying to media after the Derry game about kind of just that idea of like transitioning and being in different positions at different times. Like you could end up in a wing forward or centre forward or midfield or half back role, and you kind of, it's not that day anymore of just marking your man and staying in it. And Galway have good options, have really good options around there.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more in relation to Cian Darcy either. I think a player that really knows his limitations, but is also just really, really kind of embracing the fact that he's under pressure on this Galway team. Like that he appears to be straining every sinew, like trying to get every single last drop out of his own ability. And as a result, I think he's just a really likable player to watch. And he's going to make a few mistakes. But I mean, the goal he got against Derry, like that is a level of mobility that I think no one would have seen in Cian Darcy even last year. And you're talking about a guy picking up the ball on the edge of the D and making the right decision on the ball 3 times in that move. and running at full speed for that entire move to finish on the end of it. You're absolutely right. I've been really impressed by him, and Maher has been a massive addition as well. So that and the arrival of those two means Conroy doesn't have to be the guy that goes up and catches 5 clean kickouts. He can be the bits and pieces midfielder when we have so many other aerial options on both kickouts.
Just on the Galway team that started against Derry, the team was Conor Gleeson, Johnny McGrath, Sean Fitzgerald, Jack Glynn, Dylan McHugh, John Daly, Liam Silk, John Mayer, Paul Conroy, Sean Kelly, Johnny Heaney, Matthew Tierney, Robert Finnerty, Damien Comer, Shane Walsh. Do you see Galway making any changes to that starting 15 this weekend?
This weekend, well, obviously much will depend on Damien's injury. I wouldn't change. I mean, let's just presume that Damien is fit, because we haven't heard anything else, anything solid, any other solid information. I don't think I'd change that team. I mean, the change that might end up happening, and I'm not even too sure how I feel about it myself, to be honest, because I don't think he's put a foot wrong, but I do think Sean Fitzgerald may get squeezed out. Just if Sean Kelly doesn't really, if he has a couple of other performances where he's not as effective as we know he can be at wing forward, I think that may be the change that ends up happening. And that's really through no fault whatsoever of Sean Fitzgerald. Like he's obviously not the most gifted footballer, on the ball. I think that's obvious, but he doesn't need to be. And he knows that himself. I think, he's just really, really good at the things he needs to be really, really good at. But I feel like if we're a team that holds onto the ball as often as we do and gives the full back line as many touches as we gave them in the Derry game, that having Sean Kelly there, like having 3 out and out stoppers, might end up being one too many. That if you can get Sean Kelly on the ball deeper, that he might provide more thrust there than even either the 2 cornerbacks and certainly Sean Fitzgerald would do. I think that might be the change that happens down the line. But for Sunday, I don't think I'd change anything there, to be honest.
How would you see the makeup of the starting 15 this weekend, Evan?
Yeah, like if the injuries and if they give somebody like Ciaran or someone who had a good league, they give them kind of a rattle to try and just shake it up a bit. At the same time, it'd be a bit risky with confidence players like Finnerty in there who are going really well. Like you'd want him to build on that and keep that momentum. But the Killian McDade is his fitness situation, I'm not certain of, but like he's going to have to come back in there at some point. So like somebody's going to lose out, yeah. So you're trying to figure out who's going to be the one who's going to lose out, and in what way are they going to shape it around? Are they going to move things around? Like is Sean Kelly wing forward because they're easing him back in, or is Sean Kelly wing forward because that's where they see him playing and they're trying to build him into that role to try and strengthen them up from that position up, because as I said, they still are doing that wing forward. They really do rely on their wing forwards dropping back in and getting up and down, and they ask a lot of them. Like, so their wing forwards essentially play as wing backs anyway, but like that's kind of, we're going to find that out soon enough. Like in a big game, playing Kerry in a big championship game or something like that, is Sean Kelly going to be wing forward with McGrath American, or are they going to change that around? And McDade coming in, it's hard to see where he would come in, if not wing forward or midfield or wing back, which again, Fitzgerald and a Kelly moving and Fitzgerald maybe possibly losing out would be what you would expect to be the solution. But at the same time, Fitzgerald brings height, and that full back line really struggles aerially over the years. Maybe not as much last year, but like even if you think back to that Armagh game and the goals laid on, they struggle under the high ball. Now I thought that goalkeeper did really well under the high dropping ball against Derry. In fairness, Gleeson, like he did really well, where in the past that would have been an area where they were targeting, and like he did really, he caught, I think Oran Lynch dropped a shot in the first half and he caught it brilliantly, like so. But like Fitzgerald does give them that height, and if they're going to go down the approach, as Murph was saying there, of kind of horses for courses each game, I suppose it depends on what the matchups are, and if there's somebody in there like the Fitzgerald on O'Shea. Like if there's something like that, they'll start Fitzgerald and put him in. But otherwise, you would imagine he's would be the one who would lose out with McDade coming back, and you'd hope that McDade will be back, because if you're talking about winning All Irelands, you'd need him.
Two players, Ciaran, that maybe we need to see for longer periods this weekend. One in Killian McDade, given because he's just been struggling with injuries, to get game time back into him. But another man, Keane Hernan, he's obviously been away in Erasmus, but he's back in the squad, and like he was a great find last year. But obviously, being in Erasmus in America, he probably needs some football now.
Yeah, I mean, I did hear some minor grumblings amongst fans about him being back in the 26th for the Derry game. I disagree entirely. I think the guy is he's a really exciting player to watch. He is such a progressive player. He wants to affect the game. And he brings something different as well. And you're right. I mean, I would like to see him get 20 minutes at least on Sunday, depending on how the game is going. And I think he could actually be a big factor in the team. Again, Carl Sweeney's injury, I'm not entirely sure what the situation is there. I mean, I would say for sure that Carl Sweeney is going to be a vital player for Galway this summer. As we get to the quarterfinal, semi-final, final stage. I mean, Carl Sweeney he's a really, really top class player. And you look at the problems that the really big teams are going to ask of you, and Carl Sweeney does solve, he does solve problems at a high, against high level teams. He's got he's a bundle of energy. He's sharp on the ball. He gets big scores. He gets goals. He's a guy, again, I would really like to see this weekend. I would, in fact, say Keane Hernan needs to get in line behind Carl Sweeney. If you're asking me who I need to see game time, got it? Because I mean, I think Keane Hernan, as you say, if you're on Erasmus in America, you are going to be a little bit behind physically, and you can certainly be introducing him over the course of the next 3 or 4 weeks. But depending on the injury, I would love to see Carl Sweeney get like significant game time, because I just think he's really important.
Eamon, just on the opponents this weekend for Galway, Westmeath, disappointing first day out. I think they dropped something like 4 or 5 shots short in the first half, where Armagh got scores off. They were probably in a bit more of a positive place last year compared to now, where they ran Armagh closely, but it's a 5-point defeat. A lot of people saying the performance wasn't up to scratch. But what challenge do you think Westmeath will pose this weekend for Galway?
Yeah, 5-point defeat, still kind of competitive. Like they obviously had a really good league campaign after kind of being competitive in last year's championship, and obviously Tailteann Cup. So it was a good kind of run for them. I think that the league campaign, from their performances, I wasn't as surprised with their championship showing from based on their league showing. I think the results kind of masked, and the strength of that division as well masked where they are. What would you say about them? I think that they still very reliant on Heslin and his role in full forward. There's a lot of athleticism and youth kind of throughout their team. Westmeath, just as a county, kind of will get, if things go, that they'll rise. If they get an edge here in the game, or if things go their way and they get a goal and they're in the game, they will feed off of it. They will really feed off of it. That's just the way they are. And if they're kept in it, the longer they're kept in it, the trickier it's going to get. And I know you can say that about any team, but they really do feed off of it. Just the mentality that they have, where at the same time, you could, because it was only 5 points, competitive on the face of it, but it was comfortable as well for Armagh. I think that going back to that point on kind of high ball weakness in the full back line, like a direct ball, I think that Heston inside, if he gets the right kind of ball, can cause a lot of trouble. I think they've got athleticism around the field. I think that they'll get numbers back. But at the same time, I don't see it. I see Galway winning it, by something similar to what Armagh did, really, to be honest. I wouldn't be massively worried in that game, to be totally honest. I don't think Galway are at a place the way they're playing that they're going to absolutely rip through a team unless the other team kind of self-destruct. But said if you're looking at Westmeath's strengths, I still think it's around focal point inside of Heslin and just kind of general. They've got quite a lot of speed and athleticism around the middle third, and they're quite they're tenacious. And I said they'll feed off of momentum.
Yeah, and I think we should, Sam McCartan is a brilliant player. He's also got a massive Galway connection. He's Sean Purcell's grandson. So I know that quite a few Galway people have kind of kept an eye out for him once that family connection became clear. And he is he's a super footballer, like just an absolute, he's a gem to watch, a genuine gem to watch. And they do have they have a few proper ballers. Loughlin is very good. O'Toole is very good. Heslin is still, as Eamon says, like a very effective player. And they're I kind of feel like they wouldn't have got relegated from Division Two this year. That like the standard in Division Three was a little higher than you might have thought in a lot of ways. So they they're at least as good as Meath. I don't think they're a million miles behind Cork the way they're playing at the moment. So yeah, I would agree with him, and I think I wouldn't be at all surprised if Westmeath are bang in this at halftime, bang in this after 45 minutes, but the goal and maybe pull away, kind of in the final quarter, and that again, as Eamon says, very similar kind of to the Armagh game. We'll have known that we were in a game, but that there is a gulf in class there, I think.
And them forwards are like O'Toole, like particularly O'Toole, and he has a really good relationship with Heston. And as they're athletic and they are fast, and some of their backs are fast. Like they're good players, but I don't. The only matchup that would concern me would be Heslin. If McGrath picks up Heslin,
would you think McGrath go there, or would he go over on Loughlin and Fitzgerald go on Heslin?
I would put Fitzgerald on Heslin, to be honest, but but at the same time, McGrath's been taking the key forward, and the key forward is Heslin. And regardless of size, McGrath's been taking the key forward, so he did that against McGuigan, and look, the high ball, he did well against McGuigan. He's done well against McGuigan twice now. He's a really good marker. He's tenacious, but he did struggle under the high ball against McGuigan. He really struggled, and he was lucky. Kind of 3 balls came in, and there was a goal chance and 2 points. So it could have been 1-2 off of 3 high balls. So McQuicken wouldn't win a ball in 10 with John Heston. So it's. But at the same time, I don't see the game as competitive as it would be against Derry, hinging on that. So and it's more learnings from it. So they'll learn from this. If he does if it goes one way or another based on who picks up Heston, they will learn from that. I still, it's no disrespect to Westmeath, bordering my own county, but I don't see it being decisive.
On Ronan O'Toole, Ciaran, we all know the way John Daly likes to play. He likes to sit back in the pocket. Ronan O'Toole likes to go deep. What Galway have done at certain stages is where if it's that kind of a centre forward, Liam Silk will go and follow him, and John Daly might go out to the wing. Do you think that's what's going to happen on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, Silk did such a great job on Fergal Boland, and they are, broadly similar players, I think. And I would say that's what'll probably happen. That's and even kind of the Galway Mayo game was interesting because at the end of that game, I was, geez, what did Silk do actually? How good a game did Silk actually have? And then it's actually only when you go back and rewatch the game that you realize he just completely shut Fergal Boland down. And Silk is that kind of low key operator, and if funny, even in Killian McDaid is kind of hanging over this team at the moment, and you're kind of pinpointing players who might be under pressure. I mean, there were Galway fans talking to me about John Daly being under pressure before the Derry game. And that's I think that no one's place is 100% secure, but I just think Daly, there are intangibles that Daly brings as well, communication, leadership, etc., that I would always be extremely loath to even discuss John Daly getting dropped from this Galway team. But I thought it was a fair point. But I mean, Liam Silk was the person I was questioning after the Mayo game, and then the more you watch, um, watch that game back, you see just what a good job he did on Fergal Bullen. So I think that's the role that we'll see him fulfill again on Sunday.
Is it Maher on Canellan then, Eamon?
Maher on Canellan. They put Maher, from what I see, Maher was matching up mainly on glass the last day. But it depends on who. I think that Westmeath will put someone on Conroy, and then the rest will fall into place. Like I see that being more, the terms being set more that way, rather than Galway deciding who they're going to man mark out of the Westmeath midfielders. And I don't see Canellan being put on Conroy. Yeah, so it probably will match up in that way, and that'll be a challenge because Canellan is very, very good in the air. Like he's very good in the air, and he's a big boot on him. He kind of comes into the game in flashes, and like I suppose 5 years ago that would have been seen as a bad thing, but like the modern game now, like it's a lot of running, and you come in and you do come. It is more about moments, like running hard and then producing moments, and he can get hot. So like there is that danger. Like when we talk about Mayo or when we talk about Westmeath and momentum and getting kind of if the further they're in it, the more excitable they'll get. Like he's one who definitely will rise into it. But yeah, like the matchups in that, like I suppose they are really your key Westmeath players. It'll just be interesting to see. As I said, like are Mayo are Galway gonna go out in the same way as they have in previous games and like really get the matchups right, really go, or are they gonna try and take this as an opportunity for them to play and try and develop their own style? So it depends. Like we'll get an insight if they're going for the Ancelotti tactics or if they're going to try and develop something a bit more. Like I don't see like obviously midfield somebody has to mark somebody, like somebody's going to have to set the tempo, and I see Westmeath setting that tempo in terms of who marks Paul Conroy, because he's less versatile to kind of, he's an easier target to mark, shall we say. He's not as mobile as the others.
Do you think they'll put McCartney or Wallace back in the full back line for go as danger man?
Shane Walsh being man marked. If Comer's playing, he'll be man marked. No, I see Wallace. I see Wallace doing a man marking job. I do. It's hard. Westmeath. Will they? Shane Walsh should be the one who'll be man marked. I don't think that, like Finnerty, you don't man mark Finnerty. Like he plays on the loop. Like the points Finnerty gets can't be stopped. Like he comes on the loop, he either scores them or he doesn't. Like he's not someone who he only gets limited touches, and he'll either score or he won't. Like where Walsh kind of comes, he can be so heavily involved. He requires to be, he needs to be man marked. Comer will be in or out. Like if Comer's fit, he'll be man marked, and if Walsh is fit, he'll be man marked. And I can see Wallace doing one of those, but I haven't seen enough of them, to be honest, to know exactly who they're going to put on Shane Walsh. But Wallace, over the last number of years, has been assigned tasks. So I can't see McCartan doing that, though, to be honest.
No, I would say that McCartan is, he's a wing back who, kind of like a Johnny Heaney wing back in a lot of ways, in that, he's a middle eight player as opposed to, and then, you see the job that Pather Morgan did on Darren McCurry at the weekend. And, the players are capable maybe of more versatility than we give them credit for. And, there is that, put them on the back foot. And plenty of players have tried to do that with Shane in the past, with varying kind of degrees of success. But funny, again, watching the Derry game back, having been at it in the flesh, you're when you're at a game in the flesh, you're always kind of eager to, okay, Shane, can we see some more from you on the ball? Can you get more involved? And actually, you watch it back and you realize he actually had the last hand in, a good number of scores. And if he wasn't, kind of the showy Shane Walsh that we've seen in the past, he was actually a very effective version of Shane Walsh, and is trending in actually quite a positive direction, more positive than I would have thought watching the game in the flesh first time around.
Yeah. I think I think if Comer is playing, like, and if he is inside, obviously it'd be different if he's out on the half forward line or floating out further, coming out the field rather than starting and like being positioned in the half forward line. But if he's coming out, but if he's inside, Maguire is their obvious player who would mark him because
Yeah.
he's the height, like, and Maguire is obviously he's a very good marker. Like he's a tall man, but he doesn't feel like he's a traditional cornerback kind of fullback. And he had a good game the last day. I would imagine he'll pick Comer, but like it's a strange one because they're saying, like, in terms of they're fast and they're athletic, a lot of the Westmeath backs are quite good and comfortable on the ball, like, like the James Dolan and McCartan. Like they haven't, but that's the way the game has gone. Like in terms of, and Galway are kind of actually bucking the trend in terms of Galway have three out and out defenders in their full back line. So it's where Westmeath don't have as many out and out defenders. So like when you're saying who they're going to put man marking Shane Walsh, is Jamie Canoe going to pick him up? Again, Jamie Canoe is kind of very comfortable player on the ball, kind of like, or are they going to put Wallace back, or like it depends. Like they could put McCarran back and put him on the back foot, but again, then if Galway keep Walsh inside, and it is that tricky element of if you're not playing out and out defenders, but the modern game, it's like even that thing with having McGrath in the full back line on someone who's taller than him, like you're saying the risk of a high ball coming in. Sure, how many high balls are going to come in the modern game now? Like, how many times is an inside forward going to isolate someone who's not an out and out cornerback? I definitely see the man marking Shane Walsh if Damien Comer, is big if Damien Comer plays. I just think Maguire will match up against him. And like Westmeath are going to have loads of players back. They're going to have loads of guys back, and then so will Galway. Like in the way Galway play, they get numbers back on like when they lose and the opposition transition is coming, they get numbers back. So in terms of like, there's gonna be a lot of people picking different people. Like so, Shane Walsh would be the one who you'd say he needs to be marked. But aside from that, and Comer if he's fit. But aside from that, I don't see others being man marked. I don't think there's the personnel in their back line to man mark Matthew Tierney. So yeah, you can tell I'm not massively confident of Westmeath pulling an upset here.
That's what we like to hear. As Ciaran said, we have to embrace this weekend. But before we do finish, Ciaran, we want to get a win here, but it's not automatically putting us in a quarterfinal, because that's what we all thought last year. We're not being synced into that trap again this year, but it does put us in a great position if we do get a result here this weekend.
It does. And I think you just drive on in this scenario. You don't try and get too smart, too clever with these group stages. Like it's worked out perfectly for Galway. Like it's been game week off, game week off, and it'll continue to be that way all the way through the championship. So, we can't complain about the format or anything like that. As long as Galway win on Sunday and then just avoid defeat against Armagh, we'll have a week on, week off summer. So that's where that's what you're aiming for. You're not looking to rest players or rotate the squad necessarily this weekend beyond maybe that the idea of maybe giving McDade 45 minutes or something rather than 25 minutes off the bench. Like that's the extent of rotation that I would do, because quite frankly, staying out of the preliminary quarterfinals is the be all and end all. I just don't think you're winning an All-Ireland from there. So, yeah, it's maybe last year we were discussing getting a little tricky with it or being too smart. I think everyone now realizes that the difference between first and second is much bigger than the difference even between being second and third. It's the weekend off that you want, not the kind of fool's gold of a home preliminary quarterfinal, because being at home means you still have to play the game, whether it be at home or away. So the big thing is finish first. So I don't think there's any kind of I don't think anyone wants, and I don't think the management will rotate or bring a few lads in or out. The time to rest is the week when there's 8 other teams out in 3 weeks' time.
That's it really in a nutshell for Galway this weekend, Eamon.
Yeah. Like Galway in terms of being as I see them in this weekend, I see them winning this game, like not massively comfortably because of the way they play, but I see them winning this game. In terms of them big establishing themselves as All Ireland competitors, I just think it's a case of lads being fit. Like that's all I see with that in terms of the caliber is there, and in terms of them trying to win an All Ireland. I think that there's some things we touched on there in terms of the use of Sean Kelly, the matchups that they decide to go on in the back line, how they rotate that middle third when Killian McDade is back fit, the selection decisions in there, style of play, like in possession, like things like that, kick outs, the safety of the full back line under a high ball. There are question marks, but I see them being question marks in terms of that semi-final or final of winning All Ireland. But I think in terms of getting there, like, not to oversimplify, I just think it literally is having lads fit. Like, and last year that literally is what cost them. Like, inevitably the walking wounded when it came down to it, and they came up short. So if they have enough fit bodies on the field, they get out of the group, even if they have to play a preliminary quarterfinal, they get through it if they've got their full team fit. But then in terms of going that step further, that's where the questions, I suppose, will come on PJ to see if he's done the right things or he has the right stuff in mind. Because I still think a lot of we've no idea if the kind of previous questions have been answered, because the main talk has always been who's fit, who's available, and if they lose, it's like, well, because of this, that, and the other. So I still see some questions. Look, we can do a whole other podcast of questions in terms of that final line of their defence, their kickouts, and then just getting them kind of match up decisions right on the big day.
Yeah, so that's Galway and Westmeath, 3 o'clock on Sunday, the venue for round 2 of the All Ireland Senior Football Championship. That's all we do have time for on today's podcast. Thanks to Ciaran and Eamon for coming on.